More than 4 billion people live across this vast continent called Asia, and we're telling their stories. On this edition, almost all their lives they've lived in the United States.
Really, our mind is Americanized.
But now they're deported to Cambodia, a country they've never known. Reducing poverty in this remote region in northeast Vietnam. I'm Tony Cheng, and this is Assignment Asia. Welcome to the program. Between 1975 and 1994, more than 150,000 Cambodians were accepted as refugees in the United States. Since 2002, after a deal signed between Washington and Phnom Penh, more than 700 have been sent back to Cambodia after committing crimes in America. But under the Trump administration, many more have been sent back, despite completing their judicial sentences in the United States. And as I found out, this is starting to raise questions about how these returnees are able to adapt to a country and a culture that's completely alien to them. Imagine being taken from your home of 40 years, separated from your wife and kids, and dumped in a city on the other side of the world. But for Mitchell, the biggest challenge is just getting around Phnom Penh. On his tiny moped, navigating the narrow, dusty streets, traffic coming from every direction. It's a big change from the wide roads and empty highways of Wisconsin, the only place he knew as home until a few months ago.
It's hot. Traffic is crazy. I mean, going anywhere, I'm not used to this. No, hardly any stoplights. No one respect anything with the driving. People going the wrong way. So it's really difficult transportation-wise.
Now home is a small apartment in the Cambodian capital. Clean and tidy, but little more than basic furniture and boxes of water. The possessions he had accumulated over 40 years in America, all squashed into one small suitcase.
It's really hard. It's just a nightmare. It's just been a nightmare. It's still a nightmare for me here, because I don't know really how to function yet, because I'm not used to this. You know, I'm used to America.
Mitchell was repatriated from the United States, the only country he's ever known as home. But after living the American dream, he made one mistake.
I had marijuana, so they charged me with possession of intent to deliver. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. And, it turned my life and my family life upside down because of this.
Instead of being released when the sentence was complete, he was taken by the Immigration Enforcement Service, ICE. Despite growing up in the US, he'd never got full citizenship. And the price for his crime was deportation. But why, in the 40 years you were in the United States, didn't you apply for American citizenship?
Yep, I could apply. I could apply at any time over there, but I just never thought of it. I thought that this is the country that I'm going to live in for the rest of my life here, and I thought I was, and part of an American, country.
In the mid-70s, Cambodia was torn apart by civil war and famine. As the brutal Khmer Rouge took control, hundreds of thousands fled. Mitchell's parents and their one-year-old son escaped with their lives and little else. Since 1981, Mitchell lived exclusively in the States. Unlike other Cambodian refugees who struggled to adapt, he thrived. He worked hard at school, graduating from college with a good degree, and had several management jobs. He even volunteered as a social worker, helping children with disabilities. His was the American dream, an immigrant who adapted and developed in their new environment, and now it's all gone. Everything is strange. So how does it feel like going from nice air-conditioned supermarkets to this?
It's scary. I mean, I personally don't buy anything from here. It's just because it's not refrigerated. I'm not used to eating anything that's not refrigerated. So I go to a supermarket.
But that's expensive.
It's a lot more, but at least you get it refrigerated, not something that sit out in the sun for 8 hours and I can't do it. So, and all the flies and everything all over. So, yeah.
But Mitchell has one big advantage in this dramatic life change. When his family fled, other relatives remained. A widowed aunt and several cousins run a small restaurant business out in the suburbs.
What they sell the bread. I think he knows what it is. The sandwich with the meat, just like Vietnam and all that stuff. And they're prepping condiments for it. Yeah. So the mom, she comes on and help them because they get really overworked. I mean, at 2 o'clock, they're, customers start coming. They're just busy all the time.
He didn't know the family until he arrived. Many ties were broken during the Khmer Rouge years, but the family bond is strong.
But this is where I usually eat every day. I mean, they want me here every day, and if I don't come, they get mad, but... That's nice to be cared about. Yeah. They worry about me being there alone and, maybe I don't eat right or something, so they want to make sure I have food.
But Mitchell does look awkward and out of place. He speaks basic Khmer, but it's littered with English words. He's bigger than his Cambodian relatives, and he looks awkward and cramped in the little shop. It's an awkwardness that's very apparent to his family. He shows them pictures from back home on his phone. It's a world away from the life he's living now. Reminders of the life he left behind are everywhere in a fast-developing Cambodia. Mitchell does occasionally allow himself a little taste of home, if he can afford it. But when speaking to other Americans, he keeps his past under wraps.
It does feel weird because then they want to know what you're doing here, and then you kind of make up your little story because kind of keep it on the hush-hush.
The Cambodian returnee program has been in operation since 2002. But since 2016, the numbers sent back have increased dramatically, and the US Immigration Services are tracking nearly 2,000 Cambodians with criminal records. The Trump administration's goal of reducing immigration isn't only targeting those who cross the border illegally. Anyone with a green card who commits a felony faces deportation, even for relatively minor offences such as Mitchell's marijuana possession. But Cambodians are particularly vulnerable because many never changed their original status as refugees, and many found it difficult to assimilate into American life. For those unlucky enough to get sent back, things have improved, however. For the returnees being sent back today, things aren't nearly as difficult as they used to be. Cambodia has opened up enormously. Millions of tourists come in every year, and many ordinary Cambodians speak very good English. But for the first group that was sent back in 2002, it was a very different story. Charlie was one of the first to come back in 2003. For many years he struggled, isolated and angry that he'd been expelled from the land he considered home.
You have to have a strong mind, and you have to accept the fact that it's messed up what the U.S. did, but it is what it is. You got to move on. This is your life now.
But Charlie picked himself up and now works at a centre for new returnees like Mitchell, helping them to adjust, find work and learn new skills. As we speak, other returnees lie quietly in their bunks. Although this is only supposed to be temporary accommodation, many choose to stay longer, unable to adapt to their new life. When they do socialize, many prefer their own company, split between two different cultures. The locals find their tattoos and Western ways intimidating, making it hard to fit in.
Really, our mind is Americanized. You know what I'm saying? To come here is a whole different atmosphere, whole different attitude. You know what I mean? It's hard to adjust.
And while meetings like this help ease the change, the pain of being separated from their loved ones never goes away.
When they hold me, they took me on a bus and took me to the holding tank and sent me off to Cambodia. No, they didn't tell my family or nothing. Nothing.
For Mitchell, the hardest thing is leaving his family behind, especially his 2-year-old daughter. he's already got presents for her when, or if, she manages to visit.
She's pretty confused. She's very, very confused because she doesn't even know what to say every day. She's like, oh, daddy, daddy. You know, sometimes she call me. But her mom is washing dishes and she pick up the phone. She know how to call me. So she'll call and just wanted to say, daddy, love you, daddy.
And he hasn't given up the possibility that a pardon might allow him to return.
I'm hoping there would be some chance. And, you know, from the way things are looking, you know, there's always a chance, but how great is it? I don't know, you know.
That chance is slim, though. Since 2002, only one Cambodian returnee has ever been permitted to go home to the US. Even religion is little consolation. Mitchell grew up surrounded by Buddhism, but it means little to him.
I have no clue what all this means, you know. I don't know what represents what here and who's the higher up or anything like that or anything. Maybe I should start learning.
But that faith may well lead to his being reunited with his parents, if not in life, then in death.
My mother's here, you know, she's deceased. She passed away in about 1998. My dad brought her urn and her ashes here back about 10, 15 years ago. They brought her back here, so, you know, and my dad wanted to be kept here too when he passed. So.
And so Mitchell is condemned to continue walking the streets of this unfamiliar city, a stranger in a strange land, but one which he now calls home. Thank you. Before they were convicted of their crimes, many of the deportees didn't know they could have applied to become US citizens. In the US, refugees can be deported if they're convicted of crimes, aggravated felonies ranging from burglary to obstruction of justice. Coming up next on Assignment Asia, bridging the gap between the urban and the rural.
The newly upgraded CGTN website offers optimized coverage of China and international affairs, as well as distinct voices from around the globe. Be the first to know the biggest political news and discover the background to the major decisions. Decode China with a different perspective and get a better understanding of how China sees the world. Go beyond the news with sharp opinions on the events shaping today's world and reveal a China you have never seen before. Listen to entrepreneurs for in-depth analysis of the economy and touch the pulse of new technology via our hands-on videos. Travel back in time with CGTN to learn about China's past and immerse yourself in Chinese culture to discover the stories behind Kung Fu. Get the latest news on Chinese lifestyle, including travel, sports, and nature. Regular productions including Ask China put high-ranking officials on the spot, while C-Lab presents new ways of storytelling via cutting-edge technologies, and Global Stringer delivers unique videos from China and beyond. Take a look at the world from a different angle. See the difference.
Few countries have enjoyed the sustained economic growth that Vietnam has since the mid-1990s. Rapid developments brought improvements in living standards and a sharp decline in poverty in both rural and urban areas. But as Rian Maelzer found out, it's a different story when it comes to the more remote parts of the country. He traveled to the northwest highlands to find out what's being done to ensure that these communities don't get left behind.
In this remote area in Vietnam's northwest, it's rare for people of Lo Van Kim's generation to have completed high school. Poor roads, long distances, and difficult terrain have made it hard for kids to get an education. But Lo had ambition.
Bởi vì hồi trước em bắt đầu học ngành thú y này là do cũng có một số hoàn cảnh là đợt đấy là gia đình em chăn nuôi. Nhà em cũng chăn nuôi xong là bị một đợt dịch về nhưng mà hoàn cảnh gia đình không ai đi học về cái ngành này xong về gia súc gia cầm thì chết hết. Xong em mới quyết định đi học vào cái ngành chăn nuôi thú y này.
Thanks to a collaboration between Vietnam's government and international agencies, a school opened near his village. Under this project to boost education among disadvantaged communities, Vietnam and its international development partners have built hundreds of schoolrooms and dormitories for boarding students, as well as training more than 30,000 lower secondary school teachers. But like many in this impoverished corner of the country, Lo's father struggled even to provide enough food for his family and was set to withdraw his son from school. A scholarship enabled Lo to complete high school and continue beyond that.
Trong bản thì có 12 người cùng lứa tuổi em là đi học. Vâng ạ, trong 12 người đấy chỉ có một mình em là đi học hết chuyên nghiệp. Vâng ạ, bởi vì thời buổi đấy là đang kinh tế khó khăn. Thì nếu mà đi học vào ngành này thì rất là cũng không phải là đi học là ngành mà là gọi là chỉ là đi lên thành phố thị trấn thôi là cũng rất là khó khăn rồi, bởi vì trên vùng cao mà đi vào thành phố là không đi qua vào đấy lại nhiều thì cũng rất là khó khăn.
He's now the only veterinarian for the area and the pride of his family. 400 kilometers southeast in the bustling capital Hanoi, such a success story would hardly be exceptional. Vietnam is one of the most dynamic and rapidly growing economies anywhere. In recent years, Vietnam has seen the emergence of a large and rapidly growing middle class, especially in urban areas. It has also transformed into an economy based mostly on people earning wages rather than eking a living from the land. In urban areas, sites like this squatters' settlement in Ho Chi Minh City that would be commonplace in much of South or Southeast Asia are rare in Vietnam.
We are seeing immigration into urban areas. This immigration is very controlled, and the government is also giving incentives to Vietnamese citizens to build houses. And the government will pay to connect this house to electricity and water pipes. So this actually prevents slums, totally.
Vietnam's poverty rate has plunged from around 58% in the early 1990s.
Vietnam's poverty rate is today below 10%. And extreme poverty has fallen to less than 3% from international standards. This reflects how much the country has successfully done in terms of poverty reduction.
Though not as fast as in urban areas, rural incomes have also been rising sharply. Analysts say that following the major land reform program launched in the late 1980s, the income gap between urban and rural people is no longer a serious concern. Instead, there is another sharp divide that is proving hard to overcome in this multi-ethnic country.
The current issue of poverty in Vietnam is much more a divide between ethnic minorities and the majority of the Kin and Hoa people than really an interface of poverty between the rural and the urban.
Some 45% of people from the country's more than 50 ethnic minority groups are considered poor. That compares to just 3% from the Kin majority. A multitude of factors contribute to the problem. The ethnic minorities tend to live in remote areas with poor connectivity. That in turn makes it difficult to access healthcare, education, markets. Then there's the language barrier, with 1/3 of people from minority groups never learning Vietnamese.
It's very difficult to reach them, it's very difficult to educate them, and thus it's very difficult to get them out of their poverty conditions.
Working with international agencies, Vietnam's government is striving to make sure no one is left behind by the country's breakneck development and helping people to move beyond mere subsistence.
In Vietnam, it's very important. If you want to convince the people, you must create a pilot project and invite the people to visit. And the people say, oh, this guy, he is successful. Why not me? It's much more better than thousands of words.
The second Northern Mountains Poverty Reduction Project is doing just that. These ethnic Hmong women dress in their finest clothing to meet with officials from the project. Under the project, communities form groups to jointly create a business plan, invest in activities to boost their incomes, and determine how best to reinvest their earnings. With international funding, the Poverty Reduction Program provides the groups with initial seed capital, guidance, and training. It encourages people in impoverished communities to diversify their incomes by, for instance, rearing livestock or growing alternative crops. The project has also built new roads and bridges, improved access to clean water, and helped link smallholders to buyers for their goods. The people in this village may live in simple wooden houses with zinc roofs and dirt floors, but their lives are vastly improved from years past.
Thì trước đây đời sống của đồng bào ở đây là cũng rất là nghèo. Nhà thì toàn là nhà vách nứa. Thế còn cái tính cần cù của đồng bào thì là cần cù lao động. Thế và sau đó thì khi có đường thông thì đồng bào cũng đã tự nâng mình, tự kiếm sống. Có đường đi lại thì đã sắm được xe máy để đường phương tiện đi lại. Và đã xây dựng cái cuộc sống được cải thiện thêm một tí. Nhà ở cũng đã được khang trang.
Mother of two, Vang Thi So, says that before the Poverty Reduction Project, people here often used to go hungry.
Lúc đó thì cũng không có đường nữa, đường thì cũng chưa có và cũng đi đâu cũng không tiện lắm, đi cũng khó khăn và cũng vì dân bản này cũng khổ vì chưa có kinh nghiệm làm cái ăn cái đi làm đi đấy thì cũng bây giờ là cũng đang trồng ngô trồng lúa như thế thôi ạ, chăn bò hay là thế thôi. Trồng cỏ voi này, trồng cho lợn, cho bò thế ạ.
Taking a big step away from poverty.
So it's not just about measurement of how much income you make in any particular year, but is, what is your quality of life and what is the expectation that the next generation will have an improved quality of life, including through education and healthcare services.
Education rates among groups in the remote areas remain low, though.
And I think it's a key issue for Vietnam to convince and to provide an up-to-date and localized content of education. It's useless to apply an education program from Hanoi to the mountainous region because there has so many things different.
Schools with boarding facilities like this one are helping make education more accessible and appealing to people in the northwestern highlands.
Có những em thì ở những bản xa thì cách trường khoảng 13 km và Trong số những em mà ở xa, cách trường xa như vậy thì đa số là các em được nhà trường là vận động là xuống ăn ở tại nội trú để đảm bảo cho công việc học tập tại trường.
The government is providing financial support to encourage parents from remote communities to send their kids to school and keep them there. Education changed the course of Lo Phan Kim's life and that of his family. Where once they didn't have enough to eat, his family can now put on a lunch to honor staff from the school and officials of the program that made it all possible. Not that life is easy. During the week, Lo works some 60 kilometers from home, only returning to be with his young family and tend to the animals there on weekends.
Cũng gọi là thu nhập thì cũng thu nhập ít thôi, bởi vì là em đi công tác xa nữa, là tiền xăng này, tiền các thứ em đi công tác xa nữa thì cũng phụ cấp cũng ít, thì cũng chỉ là được một ít thôi. Thì mua gọi là cũng chỉ mua cũng không đủ tạm để gia đình hoạt động của gia đình.
Lo's work is helping maintain the health of animals that are critical to the livelihoods of people in the area.
Thì mới xá là có một thú y là nó tốt ở chỗ là ví dụ như là nếu mà một xá đấy mà không có thú y mà gọi thú y khác vào ấy, thì ví dụ như là bệnh Nhật Hán thì chẳng hạn thì nó có thể là chết từ trong 1 đến 2 tiếng thôi, mà gọi từ thú y xá vào, từ ngoài xá khác vào thì nó có thể mất 2 đến 3 tiếng đồng hồ, mà từ nhà chú họ vào đến nơi mà có dịch bệnh ấy là con trâu hoặc là con dê đấy đã tử vong rồi.
In neighboring Son La province, villagers are busy tending to their animals, made possible by the Poverty Reduction Project. By improving infrastructure, providing new means of income, and better linking farmers to buyers, the program has on average at least doubled participants' earnings. Phang Thi So is counting on a brighter future for her 2 children.
Về trở thành một cán bộ như thế. Con út muốn là bác sĩ cơ. Con bảo là muốn đi là bác sĩ. Con cả thì bảo là muốn đi công an. Em cũng sẽ ủng hộ cho, nếu là sẽ là hết mình.
Veterinarian Lo also has high hopes for his children and the others in the village.
Còn về tương lai của con em sau này, em muốn cho nó đi học cao hơn và vươn lên cao hơn, lên đại học. Và bởi vì nếu càng ngày càng học sinh đến hơn để cho các con cháu sau này nó sẽ phát triển hơn ở vùng nông thôn mới.
Unlike when he was growing up, the children in this region now have academic and professional success stories to aspire to. Vietnam's dynamic, fast-growing economy and rapid development won't pause for people in remote areas to catch up. But Vietnam is striving to make sure that by improving connectivity, healthcare, and education, the gap will not widen further and that no group will be left behind. For Assignment Asia, I'm Rian Maelzer in Vietnam's Northern Highlands.
International agencies say that Vietnam's growth has been surprisingly equitable and inclusive for a developing country. It's also made strides towards gender equality with a high female participation in the workforce. But that's all the time we have for this week. I'm Tony Cheng in Bangkok. Thanks for watching and join us again soon on Assignment Asia. Share your thoughts, contribute story ideas for future shows by contacting us on social media.